We are back with another episode of the Room for Nuance podcast, and today I have
Trevin Wax.
Trevin Wax, and you've watched the show once or twice. Do you know how we start?
You usually want someone to pray at the beginning?
Yes, that's you, brother. You want to
Yes.
get it cracking?
Sure.
All right.
Father, we thank you for your goodness to us, for the grace that we have as brothers, for the kindness that you show us, and just the many blessings that you give us that we often take for granted. I pray, Father, that you would bless this conversation, the time that we have together, so that other people would be edified and your name would be glorified. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. I think Room for Nuance has done different kinds of interviews. By and large, the vast majority of what we do is I get excited about a resource and I want to promote it, and we interview people and talk about it so more people will know about the resource. And then there's like sometimes the controversial ones, like when I flew out to Moscow to, Doug Wilson, here's how I disagree with you, that kind of a thing. But these interviews are some of my favorites, the ones where I get to sit down with someone whose ministry I've benefited from for years and just get to kind of unpack it. So I'm really excited about this, man.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm honored to be here.
I'm pumped. All right, let's start off with your testimony. How'd you come to know the Lord?
I first started hearing the gospel probably before I was even born, just because of
in the womb.
Was already here. But just my parents were just such faithful churchgoers. So the first time that I remember knowing I was a sinner and knowing that Jesus was my savior was I was like 4 years old. And I remember vividly praying, running to my phone, calling the pastor, telling him that I had just received Christ.
4 years old.
4 years old.
How did you ask your mom?
My parents had already been catechizing me.
Okay.
I was like, even before I could read, they already had like laminated cards, and I was like learning Bible doctrine like when I was 3. So I don't know like the full level of my understanding at 4, obviously. But I remember where I was. I remember the moment. I remember the passion afterwards. And my parents were wise about, holding on with baptism and stuff like that. So I was 8. I was 8 when I was like, okay, now I want to be baptized.
Yeah.
And so I was baptized. And then, and so I was a believer all of that time. And I never went through the whole, a lot of evangelicals have this, if you get saved at a young age, then you come back around in your teenage years or in your college years and you kind of have a rededication or are you getting saved, then you get baptized again that never was the case with me. But I did have, when I was a freshman in high school, there was a Disciple Now weekend at our church. And our youth group was, really on fire for the Lord. This was back in the 90s. I mean, this was like we're going around the sanctuary singing Big House and,
it's
stuff like that.
Big house with lots of room.
Really deep stuff like that. But it was at that time, it was really that weekend that I knew, it was like my salvation suddenly weighed on me in a different way, where I realized if everything that I say I believe about Jesus is true, this changes everything about the rest of my life. Like my whole life has to be an orientation to him. Now I knew that before, head knowledge wise, because I grew up in Sunday school and Christian school, and like I was, I had all these advantages, biblically speaking.
Yeah.
But that was when when it became, it wasn't that he became more real to me. It was that the weight of what salvation would mean for me became more real. And I realized I've got to own this. This is going to change the course of my life and is going to affect all of my decision making.
How old are you? 13, 14 at this time?
I was 14. Yeah.
So what did you do with that?
Well, the Lord, in his timing, this was fall of 96, right? So that was when that Disciple Now weekend was. And, being a Christian at a Christian school is not actually there's challenges there too.
Yeah.
Because if you're really going to be on fire for the Lord in an environment that not everyone is, there's a lot of cultural Christianity or just nominalism, that kind of thing, then that became a challenge as well. But what I did with that myself was it was February of 97. So this would have been just a few months after that that I took my first trip to Romania when I was 15 years old.
Okay.
And so that was
what made you take that trip?
My dad and my pastor went on an initial sort of vision trip for 2 weeks to see what kind of ministry they could have there. This was, 7 years after the revolution, after the dictator had been deposed. The country was still was coming out of that communist era. There was a lot of poverty, but there was a lot of spiritual hunger at the time. And for me, that was one of the most culture shaping aspects for me personally that I encountered at a 15-year-old, having that kind of first cross-cultural experience.
Yeah.
So it was like all this was kind of gelling around in the same year.
Your dad, was he in a ministry of some sort or just a faithful church member?
No, my dad was. So his story is interesting because he's a family business owner. My grandfather started a printing company because he was the printer for the Sword of the Lord, which was this independent Baptist fundamentalist newspaper.
Yeah.
And so they actually lived up in the Wheaton area. And then when John R. Rice, who was over the editor for the Sword of the Lord, when they moved to Tennessee, that's what moved my grandparents down to this area. So my dad grew up in a family that was adjacent to ministry. Like my grandfather was chairman of the deacons for like 50 years at his church. So it was kind of adjacent to ministry, but and went to a Christian college and was, involved in church. But at this point, he had been a city council member. He was still a city council member. He'd been involved in politics, was involved in all sorts of stuff. And but he was a faithful Sunday school teacher. And he did that for years and years and years. And then most recently, more than 10 years ago, bivocationally kind of co-planted a church here in this area.
Wow.
So now he's one of the pastors at the church. But
so your dad was just a faithful Christian, faithful church member,
yes.
had a heart for missions.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And because of that, you ended up in Romania.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. So that first trip was really mind-blowing for me. I went back in 98 with our several of the teenagers in our youth group. It was a different kind of trip. We were doing evangelism. Then we eventually branched out and we're doing medical mission type stuff alongside evangelism. We were doing, revival meetings, things like that, fitting people for eyeglasses, doing dental work, doing general medicine, all that kind of stuff. So every year that our church would take a trip, I'd be back. I'd go back. And then it was for the next 4 years, I'd go every time.
Okay.
And then after I had graduated high school, I took a gap year before anyone kind of called it that.
Yeah.
And it was during that year that there was a mission trip in January to Romania. I went, and that was when I started seriously wondering, am I supposed to just move here? Should I be doing college here? And I went back a fifth time with a different team, but I stayed on campus at the Christian university that I had already was familiar with, had some friends there. And at some point that week, this would have been March of 2000, I can look back at my journal and like at the beginning, it's like, well, if I come here, I need to remember to bring a flashlight because, the power keeps going out. Or if I come here, I need to do this. Or at some point during that week, the journal shifts. And by the end, it's when I come here, and I knew by the end I was going to move. So in September of that year, I bought a one-way ticket and moved. And that was kind of home base for 5 years.
So you were 18?
I was 19 when I moved.
When you moved there?
Yeah.
And you went to college there?
That's right.
That's interesting.
Yep.
Was it in English?
No.
And so you knew the language?
Yes. So I did 5 years of college because the first year was basically language and culture learning. So I was doing ministry on the weekends in different villages.
Okay.
One primarily just working with young people, helping with the kids ministry, preaching on occasion. At that point in English with translators. But that first year, I was with several other students. There were some from Moldova, some from Russia. There were several students that were all learning Romanian at the same time. But man, I took it I jumped in.
Yeah, right. Which is really what you need to do with language acquisition.
Oh man, the language thing was fun because it took me about 3 months to be conversational and about 6 months to be fluent. Oh. And I know the markers. I lived in the village on the weekends with a family. I mean, no indoor plumbing. Like this was like really, a farming kind of family in the village, but they didn't really know English. So I couldn't keep falling back on English. I had to figure it out. That helped me a lot. But I did grammar exercises, man. Like I would like spend hours every day doing grammar exercises, trying to add to my vocabulary, like working it out. And it was March of the next year. So I'd been there about 6 months.
Yeah.
When I kept falling back on English with my classmates, because so many of them knew English, or like the friends I'd made. And if I didn't know what to say, I would just fall back into English and they'd respond in English. And I remember I was at a church on a Thursday night and I was like, I'm falling back on English like a crutch. From this point on, if I don't know how to say what I'm going to say, I'm going to ask how to say it. I'm going to say it in Romanian. And within a week, it was like, it was all fluent. Like I could just, and I preached my first time in Romania that May. And then from that point on, it was, study, writing, preaching, teaching.
All in a row.
Yeah.
How old are you?
I'm 43.
43. I'm 38. I went to Peru, learned Spanish at like age 23 or 25. I don't know. I'm bad with remembering stuff like that. But I've been home for quite a while, and I found that although I still have my Spanish, it is a perishable skill.
Yeah, for sure.
Have you found that? And if so, like, is it frustrating or depressing?
Yeah, I think. How long were you in Peru?
4 years.
Okay. I think for me, the 5 years in Romania helped.
Yeah.
But I married, my wife is Romanian. So we got married there.
Okay.
And even with our oldest son, like
that was the mission.
His whole first year, God had that plan. My oldest son, his whole first year was in Romania.
Yeah.
So out of our kids, he's the one that's best in Romanian.
Oh, really?
Really understanding most everything, but speaking some as well. The other two, it kind of diminishes from there on. Our youngest is, he's trying on Duolingo to kind of catch up with the rest of the family. But because my wife and I speak Romanian predominantly, although now when we have like family conversations, we do more English, but when the two of us are talking, we tend to speak in Romanian. That's
pretty cool.
That's
and that keeps it. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
What made you come back? It's hard, man. You invest all that time, talent, and treasure.
It was much harder to come back than it was to go.
Yeah.
Now, I think for my parents, it was the other way around. But for us, because like when I went there, I was a single guy, 19, one-way ticket. I'm like, this is an
risking
adventure,
it all
man.
for Jesus.
Yeah,
Come on,
it was awesome. When going back, we'd been married 2.5 years. We had, we had an apartment. We had stuff. We had, not a lot, but we had, we had built a life there.
Yeah.
Our oldest son, his whole first year had been spent there. And then we had obviously family members. Karina's folks were there, her brothers. And so when we decided to move back and fit everything we could into like 4 large suitcases, I think it was, we knew we were closing a chapter, and it was pretty, like I felt the weight of it because we were moving back as a family, and I was taking my wife away from her folks. So that was it. It was much more difficult.
Yeah.
But
what
sensed,
made you come back?
Yeah, we just sensed that. I think the last year it just became really clear I needed to continue my education, and I really did want to do. I mean, I looked at some other European options for doing a master's, but it really became clear that, I felt like this pull to American education system, to American seminary, and so that's what the pullback was.
So you came back, and where'd you go?
Southern.
Yeah. Okay. What'd you focus on there? Just get an MDiv?
Yeah, MDiv. Yeah. The pastoral ministry track, whatever though.
And is that what you were thinking at this time? Were you thinking, I'm going to be a pastor?
Yeah, I just knew I was called to ministry, generally speaking. Mm-hmm. Yes, but I did think it was going to primarily be in pastoral ministry, and that has been the case throughout my ministry. But just knew that was going to be the main avenue. So we lived in Louisville for 18 months. Village Manor, that little area where there's, a lot of seminary students live in that area.
Okay, I'm unfamiliar. Is it like a housing area connected to the seminary?
It used to be. it used to be called Seminary Village
Okay.
because it was part of the seminary. Then it kind of became, just affordable housing for lots of other people. But a lot of seminary students still live there.
Yeah.
So if anytime I walk the grounds over there, it's like you're running into seminary students that are, it's off campus, but not very far.
Gotcha.
So, so we lived there for 18 months, and then a pastoral role opened up for me to be an associate pastor at a church in Tennessee. And so I finished the rest of my work online in J terms and commuting back and forth and stuff like that.
How's your Greek and Hebrew?
Oh, my Greek's better than my Hebrew.
Everybody says
my
that.
Hebrew's, the Daily Dose of Greek thing that Robert Plummer has is a great resource for guys that want to keep it up.
Shout out Robert Plummer.
Yeah,
I would love
right.
to interview that guy.
Yeah.
And what was it like trying to finish seminary and be a pastor? I imagine as an associate, it was probably a little easier.
Yeah, the church was really supportive for me to do that. So they were, me going up there, they were, the church really loved they loved me and Karina a lot. And we had our daughter when we were living there. So we had a really good 4-year ministry there. Yeah. I learned a lot about pastoral presence under a really faithful, just a really good and faithful pastor.
Yeah.
And that season was great. We started a class for young marrieds, which we kind of were that too. Some of them with kids, some still in college, or and we had some really good years of fruitful ministry there, and so it was a really good season.
To have a young family and be a part of a healthy church is a really cool experience, because you're raising your family with a bunch of other people who, it's like we're raising our kids together. This is like some of the most impactful, memorable times of our lives. Yeah. That sounds a little corny, but it
really is though.
Yeah, it really is.
And that was it was a multi-generational church. It was a First Baptist church. It'd been there for a long time, and it kind of has all the sort of challenges and problems that you would associate with an established church like that. But the people, they were just really genuine, good people who loved Jesus, who encouraged. Yeah. And they encouraged me in my writing too, which was, always there, but was really, was becoming more.
When you say they encouraged you, do you mean they just said good job, or they like allocated time in your work week so that you could do more of it? What did that encouragement look like?
Yeah, some of both.
Okay.
Like it wasn't everybody in the church that even knew, I was doing some writing. But a lot of what I was learning and preaching and teaching, and like it was all kind of feeding together.
All right.
And I was wanting to do writing at that time.
Yeah.
So, that goes way back to when I was like 6 years old. I wanted to write.
Well, let's go back. What happened at 6?
No, I started writing stories and stuff.
You've always
I've always been like, and if you had asked me like as a young person, like, what do you want to do? Yeah. Write was always going to be one of the answers.
That's so fascinating. I never would have said that, but from an earliest age, from a very early age, I always just felt like I need to pick up the pen and say how I feel, which I think that's what a writer does. Whether you're good or not is another question, but yeah. Here's a maybe an interesting question. I think that going to Peru and having to be completely immersed in my second language to become semi-fluent. I mean, I feel like I became pretty fluent, but there's still a level of people who live there versus people who are really good at the language but aren't from there. There's a distinction. But for total
Did you dream in Spanish?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I was preaching 4 times a week in Spanish.
Oh yeah. Did you ever have this issue happen where like you would, like I would have sometimes dreams with my American family members, and they were speaking Romanian in the dream, even though they don't speak Romanian.
Yeah.
And like,
that's so funny.
Like that's when full immersion has happened. When you're dreaming in the other language. Yeah.
And dude, you married someone who spoke that language. That really had to help. But okay, so I've told people before, I think doing that actually helped me become a better communicator in English. It's odd because like, they say, like artists steal until they find their own voice. Yeah. So even as like a young preacher, which I was preaching probably well before I should have been. But you listen to Mark Driscoll and you do your Mark Driscoll thing, and you listen to Piper, and everyone goes through their Piper phase, and you do your Keller thing. Going to Peru, like I just had to preach in Spanish, and I didn't have any box to put that into, and I did that for several years, and I did all my writing in Spanish.
Right.
And then when I came back to the States, it was like everything was a blank slate, and I think that's when I like really found my voice, which is a little counterintuitive because I think people would assume that learning a second language to that depth would actually mess with your English. No. But I didn't find that to be the case.
No, Spurgeon talks about that too.
Okay, what does he say?
One of the best ways to, I think it's in lectures to my students, but one of the best ways to improve your preaching in English is to be fluent in another language. In part because I think I'm pretty confident that I might have written about this somewhere, and I've got the quote at TGC or something, but I think it's because I think what happens is, so a different language is a different world. You know this.
That's true. Yeah. It's a different culture.
It's a different culture. It's like, there is no one-to-one correlation. There are certain words in Romanian that have no English translation, but I know what they mean.
Right.
Like I can explain what they mean, but I can't like give you a word that is an equivalent. Right.
Yeah.
So because languages are worlds, when you switch from one language to another, you're really putting your mind on a different track.
That's true.
And because you have more than one track that your mind can run on, it sharpens your community. I felt like I will say, I don't know how evident it was in my writing, but my reading, my ability to read faster and comprehend more in English, I still remember. I remember I got that book. I got it out of the library at the Christian university I was at in Romania, Loving God by Chuck Colson. No, it's either Loving God or Born Again, but it was one of the ones where he kind of gives this whole story and kind of the,
I think that's Born Again. Yeah.
It might have been Born Again. I read through that in a day.
Yeah.
It was like 300 something pages, and I was like 19 at the time, I guess. I could not believe how fast I was able to get through that book. Yeah. And I was like, I never could read this fast before, but it was something about the difficulty and sort of the trudging through Romanian day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year, that then when you drop English on it, it's just like I could intake so much faster.
It makes you think about someone like C.S. Lewis, his ability to read like Anglo-Saxon, Greek, all this stuff. And then he goes to write and not a wasted word.
That's right.
A lot of editing, but anyways. Okay. So you're starting to get into writing while you're working at First Baptist of
Shelbyville.
Okay. How far is that from here?
Probably about 45 minutes.
Okay.
40 minutes.
And you're getting serious about writing. What does that look like?
So
you start a blog?
I kind of had I call it like a proto blog.
Okay.
Actually what happened was in college, I started doing a devotional. I basically came to this realization, I am not going to ever really be good at writing unless I discipline myself to get my reps in, right? Like I've just got to be writing.
You have to.
So I was like, I'm going to do a devotional once a week. I'm going to send it out to an email list of, just people that were in my church or my home church or things like that. People that I knew. And so I did it was going to be a devotional based on something Jesus said. So it's called Red Letters Devotional. This was before the whole, let's be Red Letters Christians and all that. Like it was not anything like that. It was just, I want to get to know Jesus more. I want to do study and I want to write.
Okay.
So I was like, I limited myself 300 to 350 words.
Yeah.
On something Jesus said. So I would go through the Bible and I'd pick on something.
The reason why you emphasize that for people who don't write much is because it can be really difficult to limit yourself.
Yes.
Everything has to be tight. No,
that's right.
No wasted words, no wasted sentences. You got to be very clear. If you got 1,000 words to ramble on, I mean, it totally changes the way you write.
Totally.
Yeah.
And I generally could write up to like 400 to 500 on whatever the sentence was or whatever the quote was I was doing from Jesus. But then I would whittle that thing down. Yeah. And I did that every week and built kind of an email list of, dozens, couple hundred subscribers or whatever. And it was great.
You say that casually, a lot of people write books that don't get a couple hundred readers. I mean, to build up an email list of a couple hundred people that actually want to listen to what you have to say every day is pretty significant.
Not every day, once a week.
Oh, sorry. That's right.
Yeah,
that's right.
just once a week. But I mean, I was doing that. So I was writing all of that because, one, I wanted to get to know Jesus more. Two, I wanted to discipline myself in the writing. And three, I thought, well, this will edify people. So I did that for a few years. And that helped me just with the rhythm. And then I started kind of branching out and doing, the occasional once a month, once every couple of months, I do an article, maybe 1,000 words or so, 800 words. And that was, in addition to my schoolwork I was doing in Romania at the time, like my essays and stuff.
Okay.
But it was fun to write in English when I was doing most of my work in Romania,
Romanian. Yeah, right.
So it was kind of an outlet for me to be able to kind of be free in my own language and to not lose some of my writing skill there. So I did that. And then I did start something I had like a little website, and I started something of a blog where I would just kind of write whatever I was thinking in my last years in Romania. But I didn't really start what became known as like my blog, which at the time was called Kingdom People, until October of 2007.
Okay.
And that's when I was like, I'm going to blog every day.
Okay.
I'm going to do something on the blog, whether it's a prayer, a quote,
a
book review, an article of mine.
Were you in Tennessee
devotional.
at this time?
No, we were still in Kentucky.
Okay.
We had actually, I had applied for a ministry position. It's weird. I've had a few times where there was a pastoral ministry position that I applied for, and it didn't work out, to our great disappointment. And it was so obvious later on looking back what God was doing. And in that, I was just dying for an outlet, I was working 2 jobs. I was working Cracker Barrel. I was tutoring.
How many stars did you get on your apron?
Only one. I was never serious. Did you work at Cracker Barrel?
Yeah, it was my first job. I got fired immediately.
Why? What did you do?
I was a drug dealer who got saved, and then I tried to go hold down a normal job.
And it wasn't going to work?
It did not go well. And the lady who fired me wasn't nice about it either.
No?
At Cracker Barrel. I'm like, come on, at least fire me with some Southern hospitality, Right. Send me on my way with a biscuit or something.
Not everybody that works at Cracker Barrel
that's right.
Specializes in Southern hospitality.
So you're working 2 jobs.
Yeah. Working 2 jobs. And I'm basically I was just looking for an outlet. Mm-hmm. And when this ministry position didn't come through, it was October of 2007 or October of 2006. I'm sorry. So gosh, it's almost been 20 years. Wow. Yeah. It was October of 2006. We were still in Louisville at the time. It was another position opened up, the associate pastor one. And we wound up moving there in January of 2007. So it was just a few months before we moved to Tennessee. Yeah. But that's when I started this blog, really as an outlet, just an overflow of, I'm learning so much great stuff here at Southern Seminary. Yeah. I'm having to cut my teeth. I'm having to write these great essays. I say they're great essays on great topics, I should say. And I was just like, I want to write about the books I'm reading and write, And so
C.S. Lewis, my joy is really completed when other people enjoy what I'm enjoying.
Yes.
Yeah.
You get some insight, you want to share it.
Yes, dude. Yes.
So that was that's really when I was doing that. That's how the blog started.
Kingdom People.
Kingdom People was the name of the blog.
How did it become a TGC blog?
So that happened several years later. So the writing in the books kind of they start. It's funny because I was already writing, hoping someday I would have a book, right? And I'm in my mid-20s. I mean, I don't really have much of a platform except this blog, you know. So, but the blog wound up in that first year, 2007, it began to garner some readership. This is back in the day when just blogging consistently could do that.
It was a good time for blogs.
And it was the blog roll, you would find other people's blogs like Challies or, you didn't, there was no social media back then.
Right.
So the way you found other people's blogs was through who they would link to.
Yeah, I think you would post your stuff on MySpace and hope that somebody, that was the only social media at that time. Maybe Facebook was.
I never had a MySpace. My brother did, there was no, the only way you found out was through
interfacing with other
people. And so, and I was kind of the latter part of that first generation of bloggers. So Challies, the blog father, Tim had already been going for years.
Yeah.
Justin Taylor.
Yeah. Joe
Carter was doing, I think he had one called, what was it called? Evangelical Outpost or something like that. So, Jared Wilson was he was part of the Thinklings.
I've never heard of it.
He was this multi-contributor blog, and Jared was one of the contributors. That's how I first got to know Jared Wilson.
Okay.
So we were all young guys 20s, early 30s maybe, who were blogging and kind of finding each other online is how the Young Restless Reform movement starts to really take shape. Is you're finding each other online, and you're finding similar ideas and whatnot. But I scored an hour-long interview with N.T. Wright in 2007. And that helped kind of push the blog up because that was during the whole justification controversy was getting going and whatnot. And I was asking him just like down the line, a lot of questions.
Now, is this written format, the interview?
No.
Okay, so
he was at Asbury University, and a friend of mine and we drove all the way up to Asbury and sat down with him, recorded the interview. Then I transcribed it. And we had that was the first time I interviewed him. So by this time in 2007, so at this point, then Christianity Today, Ted Olson was at Christianity Today at the time, and he and I had kind of struck up a connection because he liked some of the stuff I was writing and said, "Hey, if you ever want to write something for us, pitch me something." And so I pitched him something, and they took it. It was, I think it was called Our Ears Still Itch. It was basically about ear tickling preaching.
Yeah.
That can sound really hard and harsh, but you're not actually preaching about the sins of the people in your congregation.
Amen.
You're stepping on the toes of the people that aren't there.
Which would later manifest in the excellent little booklet, Multi-Directional Leadership.
Well, I do think there's a section in there on that.
Yeah, that's right.
But that my very first article for CT. And then I did like a primer between John Piper and N.T. Wright on justification.
Oh.
And I emailed
like hear both
of them.
sides of the debate kind of thing?
I emailed both of them their particular definitions of key terms.
Yeah.
And it was fascinating to go to see where there was not alignment, but then where there was. And I was trying to report really and be fair to where both of them would recognize their views in that primer. That was for CT as well. And I think that one made the print edition. That was like the first like printed piece, printed thing that I was published in. I think I reviewed like Chuck Colson's book, The Faith, and there was a number of things. So this is all kind of in that, late 2000s time. And it was a weird time because these tribes hadn't formed yet.
Yeah.
So, it was not uncommon to be listening to John Piper, Mark Driscoll, N.T. Wright, Rob Bell, and James McDonald. Yeah. Or all I Andy Stanley, there was all of this, the real crystallization that happened in the next few years where you had sort of the emerging church petered out and just became progressive Christianity. Mm-hmm. And then you had the Young Restless Reformed, and then you had those tribes weren't well defined. And so there was all of this really weird, energetic, like cross-pollination that was happening at the time. And so it was a really great time to get into blogging because that's when you were sort of, you were really pulling from and connecting with people from multiple streams.
Yeah. So how did you get connected to TGC?
Okay. Yeah. Sorry. That's coming back to that.
No,
so
I'm just glad that I remembered my question.
I went to TGC the first time in,
to a conference?
To a conference. I went in 2009.
Okay.
It was in Chicago, I think. So I was 28. At that point I had, my first book with Crossway was under contract and came out in
Counterfeit
2010.
Gospels?
No, Holy Subversion.
Ah, okay.
Allegiance to Christ in an Age of Rivals.
Okay.
That was my first book. So I was 28, 29 when that came out. That would have been in January of 2010. And then Counterfeit Gospels came out in 2011.
Okay.
But my first TGC was 2009. And so I was already, I think that's the first time I met like Colin Hansen and Tim Challies and some others. There was a band of bloggers thing that they would have. Where they'd get before there was social media, that was people read people's blogs. That's like,
I only used to go on TGC to scan the blogs. Now they're so like podcast and article centric. Yeah. But back in the day, it was like Kevin DeYoung, Justin Taylor, Trevin Wax, Tabidi Onyebuile. You would go through and look at like
Jared Wilson.
What are they going to post today?
Jared and I joined the same time. So so basically, this would have been back in it was 2012, early 2012. Justin Taylor had already been blogging at TGC. Kevin was already blogging there. But I heard Jared was moving his blog, which I think it was Gospel Driven Church. He was moving it to TGC. And I talked with Colin at that point, I think, no, Tim Dalrymple, who is now president of CT, he was at Patheos.
Okay.
And
man, that's a throwback. I haven't heard that name in a while.
Patheos wanted me to move my blog there.
Okay.
And Scott McKnight had just moved there. There were a bunch of people moving to Patheos.
Yeah.
And when he talked to me about it, I just didn't want to go to that website. It was too broad for me.
Yeah.
I wanted to be in a little bit of a nicer neighborhood. Like I just kind of knew all my people.
Yeah, that's right.
And so I remember I got some counsel from some other people. And I talked to, I think it was Colin Hansen, where I was like, Patheos wants me to move my blog there, but I don't want to. This was at a time when all these blogs were suddenly consolidating into neighborhoods.
Yeah, that's right.
Stetzer moved to CT at the time.
Yeah.
And Ed and I were working together on the Gospel Project for Lifeway. That comes later. We'll talk about that. But and I remember I was thinking like, well, it'd be great if Ed goes to CT, and what if I move mine to TGC? And so that's what happened.
But did they make an offer you couldn't refuse? Like,
no,
how did it work?
Offer. I've never been paid to write for TGC.
Was there like a messenger pigeon that showed up at your door? And,
no, no. It's just I think the conversation was I talked with Colin about the fact that Patheos was wanting me to move my blog there, and Colin was like, "Why don't you
come here? Yeah,
come to TGC. Jared's moving over, And I think it was crazy because my blog launched at TGC the same week as the second Elephant Room, which I was supposed to live blog from my blog at James McDonald's request. But anyway,
why didn't you do it?
I did.
Oh, okay.
But I literally was in the airport waiting to find out if James still wanted me to come or not, because he was in the process of withdrawing from TGC over the controversy.
And Mark had refused to go to that.
Because of the TD Jakes thing.
That's right.
And so I was supposed to be live blogging it, and James, I was on the phone with Luke, James's son, and I was in the airport, like about to go get on the plane. I was like, am I coming or not? No one at TGC has told me what I can and cannot say or blah.
Yeah.
But I put everyone in a weird spot because my blog literally was moving to TGC the same week McDonald and I think Driscoll around that same time were withdrawing from TGC. And I was going up there at James's request to live blog the thing.
Okay. So TGC didn't send you up there. Yeah.
No,
gotcha.
But it was weird because whatever I blogged was then going to be at TGC, not my... When James had asked me to do it, I was still blogging at my own. I had my independent site.
Yeah.
And he thought I would give it a fair shake.
Yeah.
That's why he'd asked me to do it. But then I think he thought that my ability to give it a fair shake would be compromised.
Now that you're...
If I was if I was actually on TGC's platform. And I mean, he liked and didn't like what I wrote about it and called me and talked to me about it afterwards. So, but
he didn't put a hit out on you?
No.
Oh.
No.
Okay.
No. James will always tell you what he thinks. So, but like my mutual respect, I would tell him what I thought too.
Yeah.
And he knew I was, and I did ask him if he thought it was fair, and he agreed. I remember on the phone, he said yes. So
like it or don't like it.
Don't fair. Like it. He thought it was fair. So
here's a little interesting factoid about you. Wait, or is it? Do I have this right or wrong? You're not Reformed.
That's going to just depend on who you ask.
Okay.
So in the Southern Baptist world, because this came up a lot when the Gospel Project was going.
Okay.
When we launched the Gospel Project for Lifeway, was this sort of the tool of the young Calvinists to take over the convention kind of thing.
Right.
The challenge with that was I'm not a 5-point Calvinist.
Uh-huh.
So, of course, like truly Reformed people will say no Baptist is Reformed.
Amen, brother. That's what they say.
Yeah, you've heard that, I'm sure.
And I don't care.
So I'm like but then like my non-Calvinist SBC friends
are like
generally will be like, you believe in the effectual call.
Yeah.
You're I'm basically an Ericksonian kind of Calvinist, Millard Erickson.
Yeah.
So
right.
Faith before regeneration in the Richard Gaffin way, that faith is what unites us to Christ, who is our source of regeneration. So, so faith before regeneration, but also because the effectual call is what is where the gift of faith comes from, and it is a gift.
Yeah.
My non-Calvinist friends will still put me on the Reformed side of the ledger.
Yeah. I would hear that and I would say that because of the faith regeneration thing, I would say not truly Reformed.
Wait, is Richard Gaffin Reformed?
But see, that's the thing. He's the exception though, I think, that proves the rule.
It's just, the reality is there's a lot of different ways to.
It's true. And it's kind of like, who really cares, honestly?
But at the end of the day, it's just going to depend on people's definitions.
But the reason why I
really
find that interesting, though, is because I was reading, because your blog was in my regular rotation many moons ago, back when, again, I used to go on there every day to look at the blogs. And I was reading one of your articles, and you said, one of the things about 5-point Calvinists that I often struggle with is, and you said X, Y, Z, and I was like, because I just assumed, you're blogging at TGC. Right. I just assumed you were. Yeah. So it's interesting. You probably catch it from both sides.
Yeah, but less now, because I think now the tribal lines are all different.
Okay.
It could get intense in the early 2010s.
Yeah.
Because the SBC was really going through a lot of challenges, and I was seen as one of the guys on the, for the enemies of the Gospel Project, so to speak, or the people that really thought this was a terrible idea.
Yeah.
I was seen as too Calvinistic, but for some of my really Reformed friends, they look at me and be like, well, you kind of are, but kind of aren't, like you're not,
but you're solid.
Truly I hope so. Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, I don't think Spurgeon's right when he says Calvinism is the gospel or whatever. Okay. He's just not, like, I know what he means, but no. The particular way that you parse the soteriology is not the essence of the
essence of the gospel. Right. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
I think the most careful Calvinists, sorry, Charles, or Mr. Spurgeon, if you will.
They wouldn't say that.
Yeah, I think they would say, obviously, it's a second order issue. And even it depends on the context that you're in. I can imagine a scenario where it bumps higher or lower on the theological triage because of certain pressure points. But yeah.
What he means by that is God's purposeful grace is the good news. That's what he means. Reading Spurgeon charitably, that's what he means.
Yeah. Yeah. So, Gospel Project, I don't want to get into SBC politics, but I'm not from that world. I'm not a pastor of an SBC church. I've been a member of an SBC church.
Yeah.
Later, I found out that it was a pretty atypical experience of the kind of SBC. It was like a reformed, blah, blah, it was a little atypical. But, I don't really, when I think about the Gospel Project as I know it now, our church uses the Gospel Project for our Gospel Kids ministry. And I think about how established it is and how fruitful it's proven to be. It's weird for me to hear you say that there was contention about it in the early days.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there was contention about Calvinism in general in the SBC for a number of years. And some of that because of Calvinists.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, we
can be the worst.
Well, you get a lot of young guys who are in the cage stage that wind up going into churches and then blowing themselves up or blowing up the church. I mean,
both been there, done that.
That was happening. Yeah. So it's not like people that were concerned didn't have reason to be concerned at times.
Yeah.
And the reality is of the Southern Baptist Convention was predominantly Calvinist at one point. Mm-hmm. There were different streams. You have a Charleston stream and you have a Sandy Creek stream. So there was more revivalism and Calvinism, but it was always sort of moderately Reformed in the sense that there was always the belief in eternal security. And there's a distinction between Free Will Baptist friends of mine and Southern Baptists.
Correct.
On this question. So that that's always kind of been a ebb and flow in Southern Baptist life on this. But there was definitely the resurgence. It was a challenge for a lot of the Gospel Project because of who we had on our advisory council, which was largely Reformed guys. Our goal with the Gospel Project was really to do a Christ-centered hermeneutic that went through the grand narrative of Scripture.
And at that point in history, very shallow point in history, most of the guys who were talking and thinking and writing like that were just from the Reformed camp. Yeah,
that's absolutely right. Yeah. But that's not been that in the SBC. That was not always the case. I've got on the shelf back there, my Baptist history shelf. There's we reprinted the Gospel Project reprinted the Scarlet Thread Through the Scriptures by W.A. Griswold, who himself was basically my kind of Reformed guy, if you can count that. Right. In that he was, not a 5-pointer.
Yeah.
Similarly aligned, but I mean, Griswold was doing that back in the 60s.
Right.
So we were, that was what the Gospel Project, we wanted it to be theologically robust, gospel-centered, and mission-driven. And the mission aspect, in part, because that's really the heartbeat. Anything that's got Ed Stetzer and my names on it is going to have, missions, have mission implications, because, that's
Yeah.
That's who we are. So,
that's right.
But it was seen as controversial because it was seen as, curriculum is a big deal, right? And you've got churches that are using the Gospel Project. They were concerned about some of the voices we were highlighting in there.
Okay.
We'd have voices from church history or from the church. We tried to, have a wide spectrum, but some people were just upset that you'd recommend any sermon from John Piper, at the end. And we'd hear from people that were concerned or upset about that. That as soon as the Gospel Project kind of got going, though, it wound up becoming less controversial once it was really out there.
We're assuming that everyone who's watching this or listening knows what it is. Can you tell us what the Gospel Project is?
Yeah, that's a great question. So all ages, small group curriculum. I was brought to Lifeway to help launch this thing that became the Gospel Project. At the time, we didn't have a name for it, but it was going to be theologically robust, gospel-centered, and mission-driven. Those were the three bedrock values that are going to be in this curriculum. And it was initially, I was in charge of the one for adults. There was something else kind of like that, like apologetics focus for students that they were launching. And then there was something that was more big picture of the Bible for kids that was going to come out digitally at the same time. This is all kind of my first year there at Lifeway.
Okay.
About a year in, a little before the year was up, Eric Geiger comes to Lifeway. He had been an executive pastor in Miami. And Eric notices really quickly, he's friends with Matt Chandler. He knows lots of people in the Young Restless Reformed movement and realizes there's a ton of energy here from a segment of the SBC that is not being well served. And so he agreed with the launch of this curriculum that we were working on, but was like, this should be all ages and Trevin should be over all of it. It needs to be the same thing broken down for all ages. It doesn't just need to be an adult curriculum. And so, literally within a couple of weeks, we wound up having to choose a new name, align all three curriculum lines. I had to lead laterally because I was considered the managing editor, but I wasn't actually the boss of the student team or the kids team. I was the young guy who basically I was overseeing and I was in charge of the content.
Yeah.
But I wasn't like the manager of the people. So I had to work through all of the way Lifeway was working to make it work. But it all came together and it was massively, we hoped we might have a launch of 50,000 people. We thought, gosh, if we reach 50,000 people, our first, that would have been the biggest thing that Lifeway had done since 2000.
Okay.
So we were like, that would be huge.
Yeah.
And we launched with 493,000 people.
When you say people, do you mean participants who
sold.
Signed up for the gospel?
Units that were sold that first quarter.
Wow.
How
long ago was that?
Fall of 2012. So that was fall of 2012. Yeah. By fall of 2015, when we did the second cycle, we were we had surpassed 1 million. Wow. And then by fall of 18, I think the highest I can recall it got was like 1.7 million.
Wow.
Every week doing the Gospel Project. And it was primarily kids. It was the kids ministry that took off more than the adult and student. It went out into all kinds of, there are churches that use the Gospel Project for their kids ministry. I don't know that I
believe the gospel.
That I'm like, wow, like the gospel is in that church, if only for this reason.
Yeah.
So, at one point, there were lots of...
Sorry, for people who don't know, the reason why this is shocking is because Lifeway is connected to the SBC.
Right.
So, for those who may not be familiar, this is a Lifeway product funded meant to serve primarily SBC churches. But then to see it go well beyond that.
Right. We had everything from Wesleyan churches to Presbyterian churches to evangelical free churches. A lot of those signed up for it. Even some churches I would put in the prosperity gospel camp were using TGP for Kid. I think that's the thing that it far surpassed anything that we had anticipated in terms of its overall success out the gate. But once it actually got out there, the level of tension in the SBC on the Calvinism stuff reduced really quickly because people saw what it was.
Okay.
And like it or not, a lot of people that don't consider themselves Reformed are totally on board with the Christ-centered hermeneutic.
Yeah.
And want, to show, and we were careful. Like when we did a session on election, we did we do different lessons on different things. We stayed strictly in the Baptist faith and message, just which was our doctrinal statement. We laid out different views that Christians come to, and we're not, the curriculum is not the pastor. The curriculum is not really even the teacher. The curriculum is a tool in the hands of a pastor or a Sunday school teacher or whatnot. And the last thing we wanted to do was to create some kind of controversy in the church. I mean, the complaints, I did get complaints sometimes. Like I had one guy, I think he was like an associational leader somewhere in Alabama. I don't even remember. You would probably know. I had one guy call me one time, was upset that we talked about how how people are born, babies are born with a sin nature. Yeah. And I was like, well, because I thought he was uptight about the whole original guilt idea, because that's still a debated topic within Southern Baptist circles.
I don't subscribe to it. I believe in inherited corruption, not inherited guilt.
Really? Mm-hmm. So you're not really Reformed.
I'm not really Reformed. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm with Augustine over you on that. Sorry, but
it's fine.
But I understand that, like Adam Harwood.
You guys will be with me on the last day.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Adam Harwood. I mean, the whole Eastern Orthodox tradition. I mean, there is a side of the church that rejects guilt but embraces corruption. Well, this guy though was against the idea of inherited sin nature.
Wow.
And I was like, well, we're bound to the Baptist faith and message, and that is pretty clear in there. It's like, no, I know. I think we need to change the Baptist faith and message. I'm like, well, are you saying that we're all born innocent? And he said yes. I was like, so
Pelagianism much?
That's what I said. I was like, so Pelagian, but that's Pelagianism.
You're all alone on this one, buddy.
No, he said Pelagius is right.
We had an elder at our church who 6 months into our church revitalization, he came to me and he was like, I've been doing some research, which never bodes well, right?
Oh no. Oh my
And
gosh.
he was like, I think old Pelagius got it right. Now, now he's like rock solid. He's repented of all that. But
yeah. Oh man.
The Baptist faith and message, I think actually more closely aligns to the inherited corruption view.
It does.
Yeah.
No, it doesn't have the guilt.
Yeah.
It doesn't have guilt in there. So that was a point of contention. But I'd say most of the complaints we got were not about Calvinism. Because the kids' version is what took off so much, we'd get just as an example, I love to tell this one. There was a children's director that called me, and she was very upset because we had told the story of Ehud. The story of Ehud, the judge who kills King Eglon, the big fat king with the sword, and it swallows up the sword. I mean, it's great.
She thought it was.
She was like, first of all, she was like, our 4th and 5th graders, this is way too much for them. We did not tell them this story. She said, first of all, you guys said the king was fat, and that's offensive to some of the people working in our children's ministry. And I was like,
tell them to stop going to Golden Corral after service.
Yeah, I'm like, we're quoting the Bible. I don't really know what to say. I mean,
Yeah, that's probably a better response than what I would have said.
Physically large? Like, what do you want to say?
Yeah.
How do you? Yeah. So that was the first thing. The second thing, she was like, it was too violent. This story is disturbing for kids. And I was like, so my response to her was, well, I was like, do you not think that 9 and 10-year-old boys, Jewish boys growing up, don't you think they love the story of Ehud?
Yeah, come on.
I mean,
man.
They had to have heard the story.
Come on.
And then the second, and I was like, did you skip Abraham and Isaac? And she was like, oh no, that's a very important story. We have to tell that one. I'm like, I just think Abraham, holding the knife about to slit the throat of his son on the altar is more disturbing than Ehud and Eglon. And she's like, no, but that one we have to, and so basically we had to agree to disagree. And she told me that they had done they had basically just done a generic message on leadership for their kids that week. And I was like,
I'm kind of surprised to hear that you're engaging. Oh yeah, terrible.
I was like, they missed Ehud.
You get these calls. I mean, I don't know. I mean, what are you thinking? Are you thinking you'll be able to persuade these people when they call you frustrated, or you just think it's your duty to engage?
We did. I would always email back and, frustrate. I mean, I made mistakes too. Like one time in doing, we did a session on the 10 Commandments. We had a whole quarter on the 10 Commandments, and we did, and I was explaining like ways of taking God's name in vain. And I explained, for example, why putting God and damn together is bad.
Yeah.
But I explained it, why, and we got some letters on that one.
Because
some
you said damn?
Because basically you got to think about, and I missed it here. I wasn't thinking about the old, Sunday school group that's been going for 50 years with a 80-year-old man who's basically reading the lesson, not really teaching it, who's going to say God and damn together So that was a bit, we had, I think a lot of the leaders at Lifeway thought it was funny, even as they reprimanded me. It was like, Trevin, you can't cuss out the Gospel Project audience,
Mm-hmm.
But even though I felt like the context was clear, like we had some situations like that or we'd have some situations where someone would say, hey, you said this, but I think this is actually incorrect, or like
which is always going to happen though.
Well, and then you correct it. Like you're like, hey, thanks,
Oh, so sometimes people catch things that you actually missed. Yeah.
I mean, when you've got 1 million people using your curriculum, you're going to get letters.
It's got to be intimidating.
But I love the fact that we're trying to serve well, and some people would be upset because we're not following the vision that they would have for the curriculum.
Yeah.
And I'm like, if you're a good teacher, take the tool and do what you want with it. Like if you know your people,
or go make your own curriculum.
Yeah. I mean, it's harder than it looks.
Oh,
but
you have no idea. Well, you do.
Yeah. It's hard. Yeah. It's really, really difficult.
Hey, how did you get there? How did you get to the Gospel Project?
So I'd already been blogging. Right. And so I can't remember when that was through Ed Stetzer. So Ed and I first met, I guess in 2008, it was probably, he and I had corresponded a little bit. He wrote the foreword to my book, Holy Subversion. He and I had been corresponding some, and Ed was just a super big encouragement to me at that time. And I remember, because I was associate pastor, and I was blogging. I looked at that like just something fun on the side as a throwaway.
Yeah.
And I remember a conversation. I was in Louisville for a J term, finishing up MDiv. And I remember saying something to Ed like, my writing ministry is just sort of something on the side. My local church ministry is the thing that matters most. Really, I just kind of do that on the side.
Yeah.
Which you'd think, would be, is the appropriate humble place to be.
But
Ed challenged me on that.
Okay.
He said, he goes, I remember him saying something to the effect of, I think you need to rethink that about it just being a side thing.
Yeah.
He said, not taking away from your local church ministry. He goes, I was, 29 years old at the time. He said something to the effect of, I know too many church leaders that your name comes up and they tell me they're reading your blog on theology and ministry and whatnot. He goes, you're having influence in churches beyond the church that you serve in. And I think you need to take that really seriously and not to see that as just a side.
I think you can still be church centric.
Totally.
But recognize like, the Lord is actually using this, and like really, I mean, kind of what we're doing with Room for Nuance, right? Yeah. Like, sorry, I'm not trying to say that our ministries are comparable in any way.
No, I know, know exactly what you mean. There is influence beyond
the local
church.
Yeah. I mean, the guy who discipled me said a pastor who's not concerned for the church outside of his own church isn't qualified to pastor his own church.
Interesting. Yeah.
Now it's a little bit of bombast in there, but the point is like your main focus should be in your local church. But if you have an outward focus that the Lord seems to be blessing, like, don't diminish that.
Right.
Press into it. Maintain balance, but press into it. Can I go on a little riff here, a little tangent? This is the Trevin Wax interview, but I've been thinking about this a lot lately. I think that the best way to do that outward-facing ministry is when you're grounded in a local church.
Yeah.
For us, that's like, of course. But
we've seen what happens when you're not.
We've seen what happens when you're not. And honestly, like, to live and die by public approval, how much is being read,
right?
How well is my book selling, or how many people are showing up at this conference,
without being rooted somewhere.
I mean, and for so many different reasons. First of all, to be loved and supported by your own church. So whatever happens out there, somebody doesn't like something you wrote, you come back, nobody in your church cares. They love you. You're a good preacher. You're a good teacher. You're there. Their funerals and their hospitals, all that stuff, the hospital visits, but also Thomas Terry talks about this from Beautiful Eulogy. He went from being a traveling musician to being a pastor after Artaxerxes fell. He says, the thing is, you come back from the road where everyone's like, hey, what can we get you? Do you need a water?
Right.
How's your pillow? Is it fluffy enough? Do you want Brazil nuts in your mixed nuts? Can we pull those out for you? And you show up to your local church and they're like, hey, we need someone to fill in for gospel kids today, or to do parking,
right.
Or like, can
totally.
you? I mean, it's so necessary to be grounded there in the local church.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I totally agree with that. And to be clear, that piece of advice that Ed was giving wasn't,
oh, I know.
Don't take your local church seriously.
No,
he was just saying, pay attention to what's going on over here.
Yeah.
And so Ed, but basically I'd already been accepted into the PhD program at Southern at the time. And I thought that was going to be my next field of ministry. In fact, I had applied for pastoral positions in Kentucky, trying to figure out how can I get back up to Southern to do my PhD.
Okay.
Was going to study with John Pennington. Yeah. And that was my goal. I didn't even get to the interview process with a church in Kentucky. There was one church though that was seriously considering me going to the next step as pastor. It was bizarre. They called me to tell me they weren't going to take any further steps because they felt led of the Lord that this is not what I was supposed to do next, that the Lord has a different plan for me. They spoke it was the weirdest, most encouraging sort of, we're not going to go forward with you call I've ever gotten.
Yeah, but because we believe that God has something even better.
They just, I can't remember the exact way they worded it. I have to go back and look at my prayer journal to see, but it was shortly after that Ed reached out to me and said, hey, I'm looking to start we're going to start a curriculum at Lifeway that is these three things: theologically robust, Christ-centered, mission-driven. And initially I was like, no, I really want to go do the PhD thing.
Okay.
But then he's like, okay, got it. And then he said, I really think you should consider this. And so it was around that time that I went back to that, and I prayed about it and then started interviewing for it. And I mean, the looking back, I mean, it's the hand of God. You see all these providential signs, and that was the first half.
Wait, sorry, but why do you think he chose you to do it? I mean, other than you said that those three things that really is who you are. But I mean, my first thought would be they would pick like a theologian or somebody.
Well,
not that we're not all theologians,
right.
But to write a whole curriculum for all of the Southern Baptist Convention.
Well, I wouldn't be writing. There are other curriculum options. So this was remember at the time, you're looking back at this with the hindsight of the Gospel Project reached 1 million people. At the time, it was, there's a segment of the SBC that's not being served well, and there are a bunch of younger guys that want a Christ-centered hermeneutic and more like robust theological stuff in their curriculum, and they're not purchasing from us. They're getting Desiring God for Kids, or they're getting these other things, Children Desiring God, or whatever, And Lifeway was looking at that, saying, we're not serving that segment of the SBC well.
Yeah. And
Tom Rayner at the time was president. Brad Wagner was a vice president. They felt the same thing. They realized this was an underserved area of the SBC. So yes, you could get a theologian to help come and start this, or you could get all the theologians you want on an advisory council, which is what we did. That would speak into what this would look like. Okay. But then you've got a guy who actually would be the one using the curriculum, like a 31-year-old hungry guy who wants to hustle and like really, is passionate about this approach to Scripture. Yeah. That's who you want to be in the weeds, like doing the work, right? Shaping it, making it all work. Yeah. And so I think that's why he looked to me.
So you've written some of the Gospel Project, but what is your main job as in those days? Yeah.
Yeah. So there were certain sessions where I would be like the writer or the co-writer with someone else on different things, but my main job was editing. So I would assemble the writers for like the very first Gospel Project, 13-week thing that we had. It was like we had Jared Wilson was one of our writers. We had Juan Sanchez was one of our writers. Basically I would get the writers on board, help them understand what we're doing. We'd give them the outlines. Yeah. I think that was the most important thing that I did, was I developed the outlines for the sessions for the whole 3 years.
Which makes sense, because as I'm even looking around your house, which is where we're recording, by the way, you're just a very organized person.
Well, you got to be organized if you're doing curriculum. There's so many components. And the most important thing are the questions. if you're doing the kind of, small group session or Sunday school session or whatever that's going to be, I feel like curriculum rises and falls with the level of the conversation that happens in the group setting. So good questions lead to good conversation.
You're so right, brother.
Bad questions don't.
Even when we have young guys who are getting their reps in, teaching like a Wednesday night Bible study, which is inductive and interactive.
Yeah.
Usually things come to a screeching halt when they ask a bad question.
Yes.
So, hey, you did a great job working through the text, and we don't want you to back off that an inch, but also spend a little more time figuring out those questions.
Right.
They help. So wait, did you write those?
Yeah. So generally speaking, I would write/edit. So it just...
No, but the questions themselves, do you get like Juan Sanchez writes on whatever, and then do you do the questions at the end?
I mean, usually he would have some...
Okay.
So let's say he's writing, he will have questions that he thinks should be in there somewhere.
Okay.
And then I will generally edit them, may keep them, may rework them. Because like I'm supposed to be the curriculum expert for how it works out in the small group, not the writer. Like you really want the pastor or the writer to just give you great content.
Yeah, that's right.
To give you a great lesson on this. But we supply the outlines so that they know what they're writing to.
Right.
Like, hey, here's introduction, hook people in, get people talking with the initial question. Then let's go into the text.
Yes.
Draw the points out from the text, kind of move forward. So there were some writers, basically, I mean, they're great at writing curriculum. Other writers are good at what they give you, but it really needs to be reworked a lot. So I'd say like the editorial work that I would do for Gospel Project is different than an editor's work, say with a book.
Yeah.
Because with a book, that editor is refining the voice of that author as much as possible and trying to be out of the way. With curriculum, the editor is more heavy-handed because the curriculum itself has a voice.
That's true.
That the author has to conform to.
So you did a very good job because the Gospel Project does really feel like one voice.
I hope so.
Yeah.
I mean, that was the goal. So you have to
take a maximalist approach with editing.
You do. Yeah. In curriculum and like, for example, it's not the play, like it may be that the author has a particular view of a text. Well, like we talk about this with like David Platt, for example, if who's doing Secret Church with Lifeway at the time, right? So David's doing Secret Church. David can give you his take on eschatology. That's fine.
Sure.
But if he were writing for the Gospel Project, which I don't think we had David write for us, but if he had been writing for the Gospel Project, David's take on eschatology is not what's going to go into the curriculum.
Yeah.
He's going to provide the sampling of different Bible-based views because it's the teacher and the pastor in that church that need to be the one to actually push their particular view. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes
so.
Like
sense. The curriculum has to be back up a little more general.
So like on election, I'm sure you guys didn't.
Ed and I wrote that one.
Okay.
How'd you handle specifically handled the election one. We did Ephesians 1.
Okay.
And we handled it by walking through Ephesians 1 and by talking about election as the Bible does, and then laying out, at one point we laid out the three dominant views, which is the, unconditional election, conditional election, and corporate election.
Okay.
And we just laid them out there, and
then the pastor of that local church will take that and say, here's what we believe.
Or the teacher or the leader in that church. I mean, one of the things that you hope Good Curriculum is doing is it's introducing different perspectives on a controversial text to people but it's not our job. By the time we got to that point, the Calvinism controversy had basically died away from the Gospel Project, because I think Southern Baptists realized what we were doing was well within the stream of Southern Baptist life. Yeah. The scarlet thread kind of approach, the grand narrative of Scripture. And by that point, it was really clear in the opportunities we would have had to have really pushed an agenda. We weren't. Yeah.
Was it difficult for you as a young guy without all the experience, some experience, but not all the experience? You're interacting with some heavy hitters, some big brains, some really intelligent theologians who are writing this stuff, and you have to be there editing it. I mean, that has to be kind of tricky, huh?
Yeah. A lot of the people we had writing for us though were not that much older than me. They were pastors, leaders, thinkers who were doing good work, but some of them weren't as well known then as they are now. Right. So So you look back at the list of people that we had writing, really the advisory council was where we had like the really heavy hitters, D.A. Carson.
Yeah.
You kind of go down the line of people that we had on that council. And that's really where you had some of your bigger influence.
How does that work? Do they meet up once a year? Does everything get sent to them for approval? How do they advise?
We had 3 advisory council meetings as we were putting the curriculum together. I basically laid out a scope and sequence, which is what they call it, which is like, here's what a 3-year plan would look like.
Okay.
And then we laid it out. We had two different meetings and then a long kind of phone conversation with Carson. So one was at James McDonald's church. One was at Matt Chandler's church, at the Village Church in Dallas. So we had like half the advisory council met at one, half met at the other. And we went through and we got feedback, all kinds of feedback. Some of it we used, some of it we didn't.
Because it's advisory. They're not actually binding in nature.
It was only advisory to get us going.
Okay.
It was not advisory ongoing.
Then who gets the final say on like the final drafts? Is that you?
Yeah. Yeah. Basically me and Ed Setzer. Like he was general editor. I was managing editor at the time.
Okay.
And eventually we both became general editors. But yeah, for the most part, I was the one who was making the final call.
That's a weighty thing.
It was.
Yeah.
And it was a lot of responsibility but it felt kind of like, I look back at that time in those several years of just intensity. And I think, well, the Lord put me in a particular spot at 30 years old when a leader 7 years older than me probably, or however old Geiger is, basically handed me the ball and was like, run
with it. Yeah.
Take the field.
Good for him.
And it was extraordinarily empowering.
Yeah. When you find people that you can trust, their character, their capacity, all that, and you actually just let them run with the ball, amazing things can happen.
Yeah. What strikes me now though, looking back, is some of the biggest decisions we made, we didn't know were the biggest decisions we were making.
Oh yeah.
Like you'll see this in your own life. Like I remember just on a whim, like I don't even think I prayed specifically over this one decision. Like we had to decide, because the original version of the kids curriculum, it was called Panorama, and it was not the Gospel Project, and it was only going to be digital. So when we aligned everything, I had to make the call. Are we going to do a digital only version of the Gospel Project? Or are we going to actually have print pieces?
Yeah.
Because everything at that point was, we're all moving digital. Everything's moving digital. But actually there was a lot of fatigue with children's curriculum that was digital at the time. I didn't really know how much that fatigue was there until after the Gospel Project took off. But the rationale for why I made the call, hey, we need to have a print component to this for the kids, was simply because we had print for adults and students. And I just thought it's simpler if we all align. Literally that little decision I still remember where I was in the building on like a Wednesday morning. That little decision was worth millions of dollars over the next few years.
And how many souls, revenue. Amen.
Yeah. I'm just saying from the business perspective only.
Yeah.
That was a decision with massive business ramifications that I had no idea.
Yeah.
And looking back, I'm like, Lord, thank you for helping me like make
the
right calls. And I didn't even know how big a call that was.
And there were certain things you probably like really lost sleep over that in the end didn't matter in the slightest.
Absolutely. There were people we partnered with or people we had, the best thing I think, honestly though, Sean, was watching my kids go through the Gospel Project and the conversations we'd have at lunch afterwards. And like, I remember going to Chili's with our kids after church one day for lunch, and we had done Hosea. I mean, what children's curriculum does Hosea?
Right, yeah.
It's kind of a hard one. The only thing worse
would be the stabbing of the fat king.
Yeah, right. Excellent. And I remember, but we handled it well and sensitively, right? And I remember we went to Chili's, and I remember I was asking Timothy, our oldest, about, he's probably 9 or maybe 9 at the time, I don't remember, asking him about the lesson. And he said, and he told us about Hosea, Gomer, kept running away. Hosea kept going back for her, kept going back to get her, doing whatever it would take to bring her back. And then he just said, God's like that.
Yeah.
And I was like,
nailed it.
Yes.
Yes.
It's like, that's what I want. I know you don't have to know the ins and outs of everything in the Gomer story, but like,
honestly, that's the way I'd tell the story today. You
dude,
know?
I like when my kids would get it.
Yeah.
And they would see this is about God, like Daniel and his 3 friends are not about eating your vegetables.
Right.
It's about standing firm. It's about God's faithfulness to his covenant, to his people,
Yeah.
So the son of the fourth man in the fire, like all of that is is what you want kids to walk away with.
So you were doing this full time, or you were still an associate pastor?
No, I left the church to come and do this full time, and then I.
Sorry, did you move or did you?
We did. We moved outside of Nashville.
Okay, to where you are now.
Not this house, but
but
we
this
to this area.
area. Is that because Lifeway is near here?
It's in Nashville.
Okay,
It's much closer here. So, and this is my hometown. So I grew up in this.
Look at that.
In this area. So it just made sense.
Yeah. Do you still work for the Gospel Project?
No. My first. So I worked on Gospel Project from 2010 till 2021.
Okay.
But by the end, I was really general editor, very hands off. I had been the Bible publisher at Lifeway to launch the Christian Standard Bible. So that was the second. That was like my second 5 years. I was at Lifeway 11 years, and like the first half was very Gospel Project focused. The second half was
all right. Well, let's talk about the
CSB.
Let's talk about that. What did you do there?
So it was I was really happy in the role I had doing the editing for the Gospel Project, but it was the Bible publisher, the guy who had been the Bible publisher, stepped out of that role in late summer of 2016. And the CSB was going to launch in March of 2017.
Okay.
And for people, just for history of Bible translations, the CSB was originally the HCSB, Holman Christian Standard Bible. The New Testament came out in the late 90s. The whole Bible came out in the early 2000s. It was a well-received translation in some circles, but had really not taken off with broader evangelicalism for a couple of reasons. In part because it was seen as very tied to the Southern Baptist Convention, even though the translation committee had done fresh work and were from multiple denominations. It was seen as the SBC's translation. So that was one reason. Another reason was like the Southern Baptist Convention didn't necessarily prefer it.
Yeah.
We could look through Lifeway curriculum to see still dominant were NIV and ESV for most Southern Baptists. So when the CSB put together a different translation committee, and it underwent a fairly significant revision, in which some of the things that made the CSB, in my mind, I would say quirky, the HCSB originally, the sort of the use of Yahweh over Lord in all caps.
Yeah. Which I like, but I get it.
I do. You say you like it, but when you do it every single place, it isn't as readable as you think. So it was, it was haphazard. Like sometimes it would be there, other times it wouldn't be. There were other things as well that were, that felt like it was trying to stand out. And the translation committee, went away from some of those things, maintained other elements, and really put forward a really helpful. So I grew up at a Christian school memorizing KJV, but then really cutting my teeth on NIV 84 as a teenager, and then switched to ESV in college and was ESV for 10 years or so. The CSB, by the time like that came around, I grew to love it because I felt like it was the best of both. It was the best of both NIV 84 and ESV. It was more readable than the ESV, but more literal, a little more formal than the NIV. And so getting to work with Tom Schreiner, and some of the other translation committee members, it was just a joy and a delight.
But how did you become like? I mean, again, I'm thinking if I were an outsider thinking about who would take over this project as the editor,
Not editor, publisher.
Publisher. Yeah. Okay. So what's it? Sorry. Yeah. What is that?
So this is a Bible. So Holman Bible Publishers is one of the oldest Bible publishers in America. It had been acquired a long time ago by Lifeway. So B&H, Broadman and Holman was initially for Bible publishing. And at the time when we were publishing New King James, publishing the HCSB, KJV Bibles, all kinds of Bibles. But the CSB was the one that it was theirs. It was Holman, right?
Kind of like ESV belongs to Crossway.
Yes, absolutely. So when that position came open and Eric Geiger needed someone to step into the Bible publishing role, they thought, well, Trevin can have a dotted line and still remain connected to the Gospel Project as general editor, but they asked me to step into that role and lead the Bible publishing team.
But what is that? What is what do you do in that situation?
So, we published dozens of Bibles a year, different kinds of Bibles and resources. So you might have seen the Christ-centered exposition commentary, which is kind of a more sermonic kind of Bible commentary that's Christ-centered. That's one of our resources. The New American Commentary was another one. So we had Bible handbooks and resources and things like that. On the one hand, you had reference, but then you had Bibles as well, in which we would be publishing all kinds of Bibles. I mean, you do different
teen study Bible.
Yeah, you do different covers of other kinds of. Yeah. You have your, and so.
But what does a publisher, like you said, you were the publisher? Does that just mean you oversee design, editing?
Yeah.
Okay, so you're the guy who's in charge of all the.
Right. You get everyone at the table. We had a Bible business team. We'd get to everyone at the table. Your designers, your marketers, your publisher, your editorial team, publishing team, your sales team, the people that went to all the different clients, whether it was Barnes and Noble or Amazon or Books A Million or wherever it would be, and you have all of the people in that. So
you
room.
were the Mr. Manager.
Yeah, basically oversaw that team.
It seems like an odd transition from
Content
general
only.
editor, to that.
Yes, but. I mean, I really did in the Gospel Project. I was not involved in the marketing and the help getting the word out about that. So a lot of the work that we were doing, I'm a content guy. Like you cut me, I'm going to bleed content, right? I write. That's what I do.
Okay.
But I also want to get it out there. So I had to develop a marketing mind around how we were going to talk about the Gospel Project, how we were going to pitch it to pastors or help explain why it's important, why you should be considering it, So yes, I helped develop I'm in the weeds of developing the product, but also, I just really, I really cared about the product getting out there. So you do have to put on that marketing hat at some level. And I know that sounds like, business, it's not all ministry. Well, it is ministry, but if you want the ministry to minister to a lot of people, you do what you can to help to get the word out. So
that's true.
So it was definitely like a completely different job. Jumping into the Bible business, I had to learn a whole other set of skills. Yeah. And I honestly, I remember one of my early meetings, we're in one of those Bible business team meetings, and I'm giving an opinion on a cover, what covers are we going to go with for these Bibles? And I could tell just from the weight of being the director for Bibles, the Bible publisher, that the room was morphing to what I was saying in a way that far went beyond what my actual expertise was in that field. And so I had to deliberately, that initial 6 months to a year, as I was learning the business, had to really push against my word carrying so much weight. Yeah. Because I didn't know what I needed to learn. I was I needed to ask lots of questions and, really just be humble with the guys that knew what they were doing in that seat. And so, and would have to be guys, I'm giving you my opinion. It should not outweigh the expertise in this room. Yeah. Everyone in that room, one of my favorite things with that team would be to get everyone debating and arguing the best approach to this or that, or the decisions we were making, but then get everyone aligned to where everyone could at least see why, when we were going to make the final call, we were going to make the call and recognize everyone was heard, but at the end of the day, you gotta make a choice and go.
That's right.
But at least everyone know, hey, everyone's expertise and professionalism is honored here.
Yeah, there you go. And it seems like the CSB is kind of taking off.
Yeah. It again, it was another one of those just blessings to be a part of something that far exceeded our expectations.
Yeah.
A couple of big releases the first year helped. The She Reads Truth Bible, which was beautifully designed, just beautifully designed. That has been one of the best-selling Bibles of the last decade in the entire
I've never even heard of it.
Industry.
But I'm a he, so there you go.
There is a He Reads Truth version as well. Not as well received as the She Reads Truth, although that one is really well designed as well. That the CSB Study Bible was a perennial seller. Then other Bibles followed.
Did you guys put out the Duck Dynasty Study Bible?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, that was not one of ours. Okay. Is there a Duck Dynasty?
Oh, there is.
There is.
Yeah.
I'm fairly confident that was not CSB.
Oh, okay, that's a big swing and a miss.
So
you guys
we did one called the Ancient Faith Study Bible that I love.
Okay.
I'll have to show you.
What do you love about it? It quotes a lot of church fathers?
Yes, it's all the study materials is from those ancient faith commentaries in there. So that's where all the commentaries from, but the design and the layout of it is just beautiful to look at. Which I cared really deeply about that. Coming in, I think the design team really liked me as Bible publisher because I really, really cared about the craft. Because you'd think, it's a digital age. Everyone's moving to Bible on the app and whatnot. I'm like, no, in an age where you can get the Bible on an app, it matters all the more. It matters all the more when you're going to gift a Bible to someone or you're going to sit down with a printed copy. That's a beautiful, like you're saying something about the Word of God when you. Yeah. Now you have your outreach Bibles too, that are the ones that pass out easy, that are really cheap to produce, that are not on great paper. I mean, you have you need all kinds. You do. But man, there's nothing like a Bible that, like my mom just has given to our son, and to our daughter. She's been doing the Bible through in a year in these. She did the chronological Bible that was CSB, and she's written in all the margins. Love it. And they have these gifts from their grandmother now that like they have grandma's Bible that is part of their heritage, right? Man, being part of creating Bibles like that. So cool. It just like, there's nothing like it. After 21, what happened? You said you worked for Lifeway until I ended my stint at Lifeway ended. I was the vice president for theology and communication. So I oversaw the leadership team. The Lifeway research was actually under my purview at that time. I had already kind of coached up the next Bible publisher who had stepped into that role. And I stepped out of there to go to North American Mission Board to oversee their resources and research team. And that's involved with newchurches.com. We were doing all kinds of video courses, ebooks, podcasts. My podcast is a part of that, Reconstructing Faith, which is more narrative, like documentary style podcast. All of that is kind of in that we tell a lot of the missionary stories of church planters, chaplains. What's the overall goal of your position there? So you're doing it to present. Yes. Okay. So since then, I'm now overseeing marketing and resources as well. So it's not just the resources, but it's also the team that helps get the word out about all of the heroes, the fantastic people that we get to serve with. You know, the church planters that are being supported by the offerings that come in, the kinds of training we do for volunteers for disaster relief and stuff like that. All of that's included in that role. For those who don't know, can you tell us what NAM is? Yeah, NAM, North American Mission Board. So it is there are two mission boards kind of associated with the SBC. The International Mission Board, which is basically focused on the, international missions. International missions. North American Mission Board, although Mexico is more IMB for reasons, cultural, all kinds of reasons, but Canada and the United States, and Puerto Rico and whatnot, that's all North American Mission Board. So it's primarily church planting, evangelistic resources for pastors, disaster relief, all kinds of things in compassion ministry, and chaplaincy. So there's about 3,000 so chaplains. My brother is one of those, actually. In the military? Yes. How many of them are chaplains in the prison system? Does that count? I'd have to. I wish General Carver were here for me to ask the questions about the particular breakout. Some of them are business. Some of them are prison. Some of them are Army, Navy chaplain.
Yeah,
So it
gotcha.
it all depends.
Okay. So it seems like yet another pretty significant career pivot.
Yeah. It was the Lord opened that door at the right time. And I love the role. I love it. And first, just because of the team I get to work with. I mean, both the sort of my peers on the executive team, but then also the team that stewards and shepherds all of these great resources.
Yeah.
It's I think what's been exciting about it for me has been for 11 years it was all about you're putting out these resources, but man, they've got to break even or make money in order to continue to fund the ministry.
Yeah.
With the work that I get to do with North American Mission Board, we just get to give away stuff. Like we give away, free books, free courses, things like that. So, newchurches.com has just got a treasure trove of great information and resources available. And we just get to bless pastors and planters with that stuff. So
you were talking about your podcast, Reconstructing Faith.
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
So I knew when I went to North American Mission Board, I wanted to do a podcast. That was always kind of in the job description. At some point, I'm going to do something. But I wanted to do something that was highly produced, that was narrative, documentary style, that would tell stories, have great interviews. And so I just felt like that would be a style that would resonate well with church leaders. And it has, by
But
God's grace.
what is it about?
So the first season was about the challenges facing the church, some of the difficulties that have been exposed, and sort of the fallings of church leaders, some of the difficult challenges related to abuse of authority, or the sex abuse crisis, or you kind of go down the line of just this is there had been a lot of sin exposed in the church when I started that back in 2022.
Okay.
And we wanted to walk through that, and we wanted to say, hey, let's remove the rot, but fortify the foundations. Because at that time, you basically had I saw two things happening. One was a sort of ignoring of the rot, or downplaying of some of the significant issues that were being exposed in the church, just sin issues that had been brought to light. You had, on the one hand, this is embarrassing, we don't need to talk about this is overblown, you kind of had a dismissal of that. Okay. On the other hand, you had basically people that in my mind were walking away from the faith, or leaving evangelicalism, or deconstructing altogether. And so what I wanted with that first season was for us to say, we can do both these things. We can acknowledge and recognize rot where it is, remove. We likened it to a house after a flood. Sometimes you got to take it back down to the studs, but you don't blow up the house, right? People need a place to live. So you remove the rot, fortify the foundation. That was the whole, and we wanted to use church history and the global church to be sort of our anchors to say, hey, we go back to the scriptures, but we do so with church history giving us some, just recalibrating some of our tendencies. And then we have the global church to remind us that the mess that we face here isn't necessarily the mess that is everywhere. And so we need that perspective. So that was season 1. Season 2 was more, hey, challenges moving forward. And then season 3 has really been focused on spiritual formation.
Okay.
Like, what does it mean for us as God's people to be able to rebuild?
And you say we.
Yeah. I'm talking about church leaders primarily.
Sorry, do you do this podcast with anyone else?
No, I say we in the sense of that I have different guests on that help on different topics. Okay. That are particularly constructive. I wanted Reconstructing Faith to be the kind of podcast where I have really constructive voices on the podcast, where either they've written on this, or they've spoken to this, or I felt like listeners would benefit from their perspective. Yeah. Generally speaking, not going to be your firebrand, kind of voices, but people that are just doing good, thoughtful work in some of these areas. Social media, for example, or the digital world. Like, I wanted voices that I thought would be helpful for other
Samuel
people. James, Chris Martin. Yeah. I even had on this most recent season, Christine Rosen, who I believe is Jewish. It's not Christian, but still is writing about the digital age.
Right. Yeah. Jonathan Haidt. Yeah.
Jonathan Haidt. People like that. Yeah.
If our viewers wanted to check it out, what would be like one episode you're like, this is the one you got to start with?
Oh man. I'd probably go back to the first episode of the second season.
Okay.
Which is about the fire at Notre Dame and about the rebuilding process that takes place after that. Like the point of that one, I think I've had more comments on that one than anything else. The importance of institutions in an anti-institutional age.
Yeah.
It takes centuries to build Notre Dame Cathedral. In hours.
Yeah.
That
burned,
that place can burn. And all of that work can be done.
I loved your recent article. Outbuild the critics. Yeah. Colin Hansen beats on this drum a lot. He's like, he's used Al Mohler as an example. Like, yeah, the briefing is good, all this stuff, but his legacy is going to be the institution that he fortified.
Absolutely.
And you got to focus on building institutions.
And you just got to focus on building in general.
Yeah, that's right.
The way I look at myself as a writer, like I want to just build I want to have a body of work that edifies God's people over time. Am I worthy of criticism? Sure. I mean, I've gotten some things wrong over the past couple of decades that I've had to go back and look back and be like, I would write that differently today.
Yeah. Are you going to pull an Augustine at the end of your life and go back and
I feel like my critics will have pointed those out without me having to help them.
Ben Shapiro keeps a list of all the things that he's spoken on publicly that he's changed his mind about. So whether it's like Augustine or Shapiro or whatever, I do like that. It's like, I actually did that one day. I sat down and I said, I wonder what I've changed my mind on over the years. And I listed out kind of 25, 30 things. It was actually kind of interesting.
Yeah.
A lot of stuff changed. Also interesting that none of the foundations really have changed. The inerrancy of God's word, penal substitutionary atonement. I mean, I think those things are clamped down pretty solid. But I mean, when I became a Christian, I was an egalitarian. I was anti-reformed, XYZ. So it's pretty cool to go back and see like, oh, this is how God's word has conformed my views on things.
Yeah. And I part of that's growth.
Yeah.
Like you change when you grow. But I do think looking back, the critics piece is a big one. If you're going to have any kind of public leadership or be in institutional leadership, you're just going to have to recognize there are people that are going to be set against you at some level. And you've got to be able to distinguish good faith criticism from I think the challenge with bad faith critics is they're not building anything.
Right.
At the end of the day, it's all about like the platform is built on tearing down other people's work.
That's right.
And so I think at some point and I've been doing this long enough now. Almost 20 years in the blogging or in writing in public spaces. I've seen the personalities rise and fall and come and go. Like 10 years ago, the people I would be, I'd say are critical but not really building anything, they're different today than they were 10 years ago, but they're still out there. And the personalities rise and fall, but the people that remain are the people that stay on the wall.
Yeah.
And they just keep building. It doesn't mean they do it perfectly. It doesn't mean they're not worthy of criticism at times. They are.
Yeah.
I think what you've got to watch out for is I think 10 years ago, this was happening more from the left, whereas it's happening more from the right. What you got to watch out for are people that are really almost revolutionary in their bent, rather than institutionalist, but because they're so their perspectives actually don't align with normal, ordinary believers or pastors or church leaders, they have to glean their influence through institutions that other people have built, and so they'll almost step in, almost wanting to. If they can't colonize the institution, they'll walk away and blow off the institution at the end of the day. And I think 10 years ago that was happening more on the left.
Yeah, that's right.
I think today it's happening more on the right, but it's the same sort of revolutionary ethos of where because they don't have enough sway with ordinary normal believers to be able to get a ton of traction. They've got to latch on to institutions that have gotten the ear of ordinary believers. And so I think that's been the lesson I've learned the last decade or so has been from whatever direction that's coming, at the end of the day, you've got to be grounded in local church ministry and with ordinary believers who love God and love their Bibles and aren't going to be swayed by everything going on online, the news out of DC or whatever's happening next,
Yeah. I love that the vast majority of the people in my church, so when we're recording this, the news of Josh Bice has just come out. And his disqualification. I don't know that almost really anybody in my church will know. If I were to mention it to them, if they would even know what's going on. They're just kind of like, what's the text for this Sunday?
Yeah.
And I think that's good. It's healthy.
I think I'm trying to think of my current church, and even like I did 2.5 years. I was teaching pastor at my home church. I don't know how many would know. I think the other staff members would know, but I don't think they would know either. Yeah.
Let's talk about writing.
Okay.
Let's do something that's not fair. Let's start with an unfair question. What is first of all, how many books have you written?
Okay, that's a tricky question, because some of I've done like prayer guides that are like compilations and stuff like that. So
you count them however you want.
I think it's if I kind of like books that I like look at, like published books.
Yeah.
See, Holy Subversion, Counterfeit Gospels, Clear Winter Nights, Gospel Centered Teaching. I think it's 9.
9. Okay.
I think it's 9 or 10. Yeah.
Okay. What I have a number of questions.
Okay.
Okay. What was your favorite, or what is your favorite book that you've written?
The Thrill of Orthodoxy.
Okay, it's very good.
Yeah.
I had it on our bookstall.
That's kind of my my life.
What is
like that's a life message for sure.
Okay, we'll come back to it then. Don't let me forget.
Okay.
What is your least favorite book that you've written?
I don't know that I'd say it's my least favorite. You say this, but it's hard to answer this question, because you don't want to I can imagine if a publisher's listening, they're like, wait, you're picking ours.
That's why I said it kind of wasn't fair.
Yeah, no.
But I do think people have, I'm about to have my 4th book be published, and I can tell you which book of mine is my least favorite.
Yeah,
so
I just, because I would rewrite it differently today.
Yeah.
I'd go back to my first.
Yeah.
To say, I think Holy Subversion is a good book from a 29-year-old believer who's passionate about the gospel.
Yeah.
But I'm 43 now.
Yeah.
I would write that book differently today. Than I would change some stuff, but there's some stuff that's really, that I think holds up well. But I think that's why I would say
Holy Subversion.
Yeah.
Okay. What was the hardest book to write?
Thrill of Orthodoxy.
Why was it hard? What made it difficult?
Because if you're going to take a topic like orthodoxy, good doctrine, and you're going to put the thrill in the title.
Yeah, you gotta.
It's gotta be well written.
Yeah.
I worked really hard to have on every 2-page spread of that book, I wanted there to be a memorable, quotable line somewhere in there.
Yeah.
Where that it would where you, if you're taking, if you're reading with a pencil, that you'd want to underline that and maybe just put the pencil down for a sec and really
think
ponder
about it. Yeah.
And that, because of that, that was hard. If you're going to write a book on the Thrill of Orthodoxy, there's got to be beauty to it.
Yeah. Did you know that was going to be the title?
Yes.
Yeah.
From the very beginning.
I love that.
No one moved away from the title. The publishers never moved away
for people
from
who
the
don't know, publishers sometimes won't let you call things what you want to call them.
They wanted it called that. No, it was good. That the title.
Yeah.
If there's a problem with that book, it's not a title.
Yeah.
I might not have lived up to the name, but that's why it was the hardest.
What was the most fun book to write?
Probably Gospel Centered Teaching, because I had already been speaking on a gospel centered way of teaching for small group leaders, for Sunday school teachers, and for pastors for a long time. So sitting down to write that book, I think I wrote each of the chapters one every evening. I wrote it in 5 days.
Oh,
it's
cool.
a short little book.
Yeah.
But it was so much fun to write, because I was basically putting on paper what I'd been delivering to pastors, and I'd been, testing out in settings with small group leaders and curriculum providers and stuff like that. So
what's been the best selling book?
I'd have to go back and look at that, but I think it may be Gospel Centered Teaching is up there. This Is Our Time would be close to that as well. This Is Our Time. Oh, that one was a fun one to write too. Because I really was trying to go for the different topics I was addressing. I wanted to really work on how do I hook you with intrigue and bring you into a story to then come around to the point I was wanting to make. I wanted to like
you really did
mimic,
it, by the way. That was sorry.
Yeah,
go ahead.
I was wanting to mimic Malcolm Gladwell's style on that, which I feel like he's the master of this.
Master.
Absolute. I've got all of his books right up there.
Yeah.
I was reading through watching the way he would do this. This Is Our Time, I think, was fun for that reason.
Yeah.
Was to work on the craft.
What book, to the best of your knowledge, because you'll find out in heaven how accurate your perspective is, to the best of your knowledge, what book has borne the most fruit?
Well, I would, it's weird because I just got back from Buffalo doing a conference where I was asked to speak on counterfeit gospels. The number of people that have told me that book really kind of reshaped and gave them categories of things that were swirling around when that book first came out. And that still, like, I've had multiple people tell me that book brought them out of like a prosperity gospel tinged kind of understanding of the gospel. Yep. And it brought them out of that, but it could have led them deeper into some other, like, it's almost like, when, Jesus is lying about when certain demons get cast out, one demon gets cast out, 7 more come and take its place.
Sons of Sceva. Yeah.
I've had several people say to me that counterfeit gospels not only brought them out of sort of a prosperity gospel or prosperity gospel light kind of understanding of the faith, but kept them from multiple other errors they were prone to fall into when coming out of that one. That's been super encouraging to hear.
Yeah, because there are 10,000 false gospels out there. I mean, that book could have been twice as long, but you kind of just consolidated in our context in this age, here are the ways that the gospel can go sideways. It's my favorite book that you've written. I think it's so good.
I appreciate it.
It's a book that I still like. I'm thinking as we're having this conversation, if we ever get our church fire, we had a church fire last year. I'm thinking if we ever get our building built and get a bookstall, I'm like, ooh, that needs to be one of the first ones we put in there.
I almost feel like, I wonder if I should revise and update it at some level because that, unfortunately, some of the people that endorse that book aren't in ministry today, but also because some of the looking back at the counterfeits that are talked about in that book, there are some just refinement or precision I would give. But it's fascinating. I was asked to speak on all 6 of the counterfeits that I pointed in that gospel at this conference recently. And I went back and I was looking at both the quietist and the activist gospel. And I was just like, I wrote this on sort of political activism or social activism kind of taking over the gospel. I wrote this back in came out in 2011. I was writing it in 2009,
you had
2010.
No idea.
And I'm like, the political situation is really different today, but man, that is still extraordinarily relevant to some of the temptations that we face. Errand runners on the left, culture wars on the right. Looking back, I think I would go in and refine some things.
Who's that published through?
That one's Moody. Yeah.
Moody, yeah. Yeah, definitely update the cover.
Yeah, it's ready. It's time for a new cover.
What are you working on now?
We have a counter catechism project coming out.
I love it.
Summer.
I love the name.
Thomas West is a pastor friend of mine. He planted a church in London and is now pastor at First Baptist Nashville. Recently become pastor there. We, for years, Tim Keller have been talking about, we need not just catechism, but counter catechism. And what he means by that is not just telling you what the basics of the Christian faith are, but in a way that pushes against expressive individualism, that sort of UBU mindset, or cultural wrong-headed understandings of freedom, things like that. And so Thomas and I talked about doing this for years. We finally got it going. We actually brainstormed the whole thing in the Kilns. I was living at C.S. Lewis's house for a couple of weeks on a kind of a study leave. Yeah, man, so much fun. Yeah, so much fun. Thomas came down with the train from London. He was planting at the time. And we spent the whole day in the common room of the Kilns just brainstorming what would these 50 be, right? Yeah. And I use the kilns thing just because the origin story, I think, means both Thomas and I are very heavily influenced by Leslie Newbigin.
Yeah.
Missionary theologian. Yeah. Thomas did his dissertation on Newbigin, on his view of inerrancy in Scripture.
Okay.
I was the outside reader for that. But both of us obviously influenced by Lewis as well. So we just thought, hey, this would be the perfect place. Let's just, let's do it. Put this together. So we came up with the main topics we were going to cover, and then we refined over the course of a year 50 questions and answers that are sort of catechism format with some commentary. And then we went back and refined a second. So we did that over the course of a year for churches and church leaders. And then we went back and did another year of refinement.
When is it coming out?
Comes out in July.
With who?
This is with Harvest House.
Okay. And
then there's a kids version we've just finished that'll come out next year.
The kids version is what I'm most excited about.
It's simplified, so it's adapted from the adult version. But I was worried about how could we pull this off. But going back through the kids version, I feel like, man, I'd love to give this to a 10-year-old kid and work with them on this. So I'm really excited about the kids version next year. So
I'm excited too, brother. Thank you for writing. I know it's hard work. Sometimes it can be fearful work.
For sure.
But the Lord certainly seems to bless writing in general. He has seemed to, words are hard. Sorry, give me a second. He seems to have blessed your writing in particular. I've benefited from it. I know many others have as well. So keep pressing, brother. I mean,
I appreciate that.
You said you're 43?
Yeah.
You're holding up well. Whatever you're taking, I need to get on some of that.
My oldest son just got engaged, so that's
wild.
Grandkids are possibly in the future in a few years. Who knows?
Many more questions could be asked, but for now, we need to get to the most important questions.
Oh, your list.
Yes, but am I getting early onset dementia?
For one of your questions.
Thank you, buddy.
Do you remember when we did this last time?
Okay, so
that makes it even funnier.
Okay, boom. I need to put a heading. I actually don't have a heading on this. That's probably the problem.
Are you going to change your questions? Because now that people listen.
I've tried changing a couple and they haven't gone over well.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, and you'll see. I've included some in here. I think I might pull them.
Some new ones coming out.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'll tell you one of them has been young Earth or old Earth. Bro, people don't want to answer that question. They don't want to answer that. I asked Donald Whitney, toilet paper or bidet. Yeah. And he looked at me, he said, come on, man. All right, you ready? Tea or coffee?
Definitely tea. I don't drink coffee.
You're right. Gross, right?
Coffee?
Yeah.
I just don't care for it. Tea has so many different kinds. I guess coffee does too. It's fine. I lived in Europe for a long time, so tea is...
You're cultured.
I wound up getting tea.
Favorite TV show?
Lost.
Oh. You
roll your eyes.
My wife tried to get me to watch it.
It holds up really well, man.
It really doesn't.
Okay.
And then you get to the end and you're like, I don't even know what happened.
Kids. Yeah, it's the characters, not the end.
Okay.
Anyway.
Listen, this segment of the show is where you give an answer and then I gripe about it.
Oh, that's
and I
fine.
just tell you why you're wrong.
I can make an apology for Lost.
Okay. Yeah. Well, not on this show.
Not on this show. Yeah.
I'm not going to platform that kind of nonsense. Young Earth, old Earth.
Young Earth most of the time, but not I'm kind of a 60-40, probably appearance of age kind of thing. But yeah.
Okay. Dever, Piper, Keller, Sproul, John MacArthur. You're trapped on an island with only their books. Who do you choose?
Books. Piper.
Same question, but sermons.
Keller.
Lewis or Tolkien? Their entire corpus. Lewis. Smart man.
Yeah.
Favorite novel?
Oh. It's going to be a cross between Les Mis and The Brother Karamazov.
Yeah, I figured it was going to... Russian.
Those are novels I just continue to read.
Yeah.
I love other novels too, but those two I come back to again and again. So
Mountains or beach?
Beach.
Champagne or wine?
I work at the North American Mission Board.
Right,
What are you
so
asking
neither.
Me this question?
Yeah. Why do I keep doing this with Southern Baptist?
Communion wine? That's the only wine I'm going to taste.
Yeah, that's right. Least favorite candy?
I don't like Peeps.
Yeah. Do those count as candy?
Is that candy?
Yeah, I think that counts.
Okay. All right. Those are pretty bad. Yeah.
I'm that's not a big fan
But
of
black
cubes.
licorice though, right? Pretty bad too?
Yeah, I don't like that. Yeah.
Android or iPhone?
iPhone.
Morning person or night owl?
Morning person.
Take a risk or play it safe?
Depends on what it is.
Yeah.
When we play cards, I win more when I play it safe because
Okay.
I'm so wired to take the risk. But yeah, depends.
Bidet or toilet paper?
Toilet paper.
Dude, I'm trying to evangelize.
Newspaper. In Romania, it was an outhouse. It was newspaper.
Yeah. I have my
no
own
bidets there.
jungle stories of.
I bet you do.
Yeah. Mayonnaise or mustard?
Oh, probably mayonnaise. But I like different kinds of mustard. There's a lot of good kinds of mustard.
Text message or email?
Oh, definitely email me. If you want it to get done, email me.
Okay.
Because I work out of my inbox.
Are you the guy who has like 50,000 unread text messages on your phone?
No. I read my text messages.
Okay.
I've only got a couple of threads.
Respond.
Yeah.
Night out or night in?
Night in. Yeah.
Burger King or McDonald's?
McDonald's, my first job, man.
Let's go.
I was the Hamburglar.
On
Saturday mornings, I dressed up as the Hamburglar and stole hamburgers from kids as a 16-year-old kid. And they fed me any breakfast food I want after every 15 minutes. Go eat another biscuit. Man, I had so many bacon, egg, and cheese biscuits.
A different time in this country.
I'm surprised I haven't had a heart attack yet.
Dude, do you remember how jumping the McDonald's play place used to be?
Oh, it was so much fun.
It was incredible.
Yes.
Now they're just like
with the balls and the.
I mean, you're gonna get in there, get stabbed by a needle. A homeless person might try to crawl. Didn't matter.
It was awesome. We even had outdoor play place. At the
yes, we did
at.
too.
Yeah.
The metal bars would get hot.
Yes, it was so much fun.
All right, Mexican, Italian, or Asian?
Food.
Yeah.
Mexican.
Football or basketball? Or baseball?
Football.
Are you talking commie football or American democracy ball?
Yeah. My son is a great soccer player. So we went and actually saw a Tottenham game at Tottenham Stadium last year.
I don't know what those words mean.
Okay, sorry.
Okay.
You said commie football. I'm assuming
you mean soccer.
You meant soccer.
Yeah.
But football for the rest of the world.
For the rest of the world,
yeah.
Which is why it's good to be an American. Amen. Burgers or barbecue?
Burgers.
Chinese takeout or sushi?
Chinese takeout every day.
Yeah, you have baby mouth.
Yeah.
You're like, let's go eat chicken nuggies at Chili's.
I'm not going to eat sushi.
Okay.
I'm not a big sushi fan. My wife likes sushi.
I'm on the road with Luke often enough, and I'm just like, hey, there's some hole-in-the-wall Vietnamese restaurant. Let's go live a little. You know, we might get dysentery, or we might have the best experience of our lives. And Luke's like, but McDonald's has a double cheeseburger. And I'm like,
Big Mac is a great burger.
It's like, really not. They're like, you know how bad our burger is? We put extra bread on there. Okay, cold or hot?
He doesn't know how to live.
I don't.
I'd probably rather be cold than hot. Yeah.
Wild. Rock or rap?
Rock.
Unibrow or no eyebrows?
Unibrow.
Yeah. You know, it does change based on the person's face and the color of their hair.
Yeah.
There are certain people I'm like, you basically already don't have any eyebrows. So just pick that one.
Yeah.
Classical or jazz?
Classical.
Trapped on an island with one systematic theology. Which one do you choose?
This one's harder for me. It depends on what you want from a systematic theology. If I'm on an island with this, I would take Alistair McGrath.
Interesting. I've not heard that.
Get the overall intro to Christian theology. All he does is he gives you the great survey of the landscape. Just give me a Bible and that, and then I can I know all the categories and all the different places people go, and it's like broadly, it's like all streams of the Christian tradition, including Orthodoxy and Catholicism. Yeah, just give me Alistair McGrath.
Let me congratulate you on being the first person to offer a wholly unique answer to that question.
Everyone
it used
else
to
says
be
Bavinck.
There's a lot of Bavinck. There's a lot of Calvins, Grudem. Before the most original person was Lick Duncan, von Maastricht.
Yeah.
But then somebody else said it, so he lost that unique status.
I mean, I could pick Millard Erickson or like Michael Bird.
No,
or
it's
like
too late, man.
No, those are great, but I just at the end of the day, I'm on an island and I'm just gonna have my Bible and know. That just gives you what I like about it is it gives you historical, it's not just systematic theology. It's, actually Gerald Bray's is really good if you just want Scripture only are the references, basically.
Yeah.
What is it? God is love. That's a great one. But I think I would just take McGrath because he tells you the story of how all these different writers or thinkers have developed.
Okay.
As well as he gives you the systematic. So
interesting.
Anyway,
what hymn would you like to be sung at your funeral?
In Christ Alone.
It's a good one.
Yeah.
And how many holes does a straw have?
I've never gotten why this is controversial.
Right? Because the answer is, quite obviously,
I think you say there's one hole, but I'm like, there's definitely, the straw doesn't work unless there's the hole at the bottom, right?
Oh,
the ring. Okay. Yeah. I guess it's one.
Hey, we'll take a reluctant right answer.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
It's one.
All right. Well, let's pray.
Okay.
Lord, thank you so much for my brother Trevin. Thank you for his testimony of grace. Thank you for not only calling him to yourself, but calling him into vocational ministry. Thank you for equipping him through life circumstances and training and opportunities. Thank you for keeping him, Lord. We pray that you will do that even more, that you'll keep his personal life holy so that his public ministry will bear fruit that will abound to the glory of your name. Whatever you have next for him, Lord, because it seems like you have him hopping from one pot to another, bearing fruit wherever he goes. We just pray that he'll keep his eyes on the gospel, that he'll stay firmly rooted in that center, and then work outward from there. We pray that you'll bless this interview, that it'll be edifying and entertaining to many. And Lord, if it should be your will, that there would be a second interview to talk about more good resources coming from Trevin. We pray all this in the name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen.